Well, first of all, thanks everybody for joining in. Obviously, it's a very informal, they call it office hour, so we would like to structure this as much as possible in terms of people asking questions and us trying to provide answers and possibly just engage in a conversation depending on what people are interested in. But let me introduce us. My name is Valerio Pascucci. I'm Director Center for Extreme Data Management, Analysis and Visualization. And I guess what's relevant for this session is the last word. And I'm here also with Yarden Livnat, who is also an expert in visualization. So I guess my bent is more on the space of visualizing scientific data, big data analytics, and things like that. Yarden is more in the space of what people would normally call information visualization. And in particular, there have been some question about network security, things in that space where he has done very well recognized work over the years. So I don't know if Yarden want to say a couple of words maybe about yourself also before we start going to answering the questions that were proposed, submitted before this meeting.
I thought that you said that right. Yeah, I did some work on network intrusion detection, not again from the visualization part. So if you have systems that use generate alerts, what do you do with those alerts? How do you try to look at them and understand them? Or mostly from the area of situational awareness, not as a post-mortem analysis, but things are streaming in and you want your operator to be able to see if there's something that they should pay attention to.
Yeah, so we received a couple of questions before this workshop. Since they were relevant to this particular topic, I figure maybe Yarden should take the lead and discuss that. I don't know if the people that asked those questions are already connected. I don't know if they want to re-ask them live, or we can read them, but just in case, that would be a good starting point. Are people allowed to speak up, or everybody's muted by default?
By default, everybody's muted. But
I can talk, so I can unmute myself.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, Yarden, why don't you take the lead on that, and then we'll go from there. So it might be good to show a couple of slides and address the general topic of visualizing intrusion and network security in that space, and then maybe people can ask more detailed aspects.
Let me share my screen. Is it on now?
Mm-hmm.
This is a small image. So I thought I had a bigger one. So the question is, when you have a lot of alerts coming in, you have multiple logs from different systems. Again, we're doing visualization, not the analysis. So we don't generate the alerts. You have many different systems that can generate alerts, and you get lots of them, and you try to put them together in one area and see if anything, is there any correlation between them or anything that you can see that is happening. So the main point for this is, and that was this small picture. Oops. Fortunately, it's small. If you think about alerts, alerts are some events in time. So any event has where the event happened, what happened, and we put it here in the circle of things, and then when it happened. So this is we call it the W3 perspective. When, where, and what. This is the main three questions that you have on these kind of things. So what we do is we map the where exactly, some mapping of your environment, of your machines, where they are and how they are connected. All the different types of alerts, we put them in a circle around them. And then you can aggregate them based on groups. So you'll have some groups of them. You will see you can dive in if you are interested in level of details. And then each ring here represent different period of time. The last 5 minutes, an hour, or 3 days, whatever grouping that you want to look. Once you have, oops, that's the wrong one. Okay, here you see actual display that shows you, underneath it you have a map that shows you where your machines are, and for each machine that we have an alert is happen at a particular time for a particular type, right, around the circle, and then you have a line that shows you which machine it belongs to. And that way you can aggregate all the alerts during a particular period of time as a line that becomes wider and wider as you have more alerts. And when you look at a particular machine, you get information that the circles around it becomes bigger and bigger to indicate that there are more alerts around it. And what's important in this kind of visualization is that it allows you to see the information in context. So if I look at a particular machine, I can see information about that machine. How many alerts do I have in a particular period of time, where they are and how they are, what type of alerts are associated with it. But I can also look at it and see what other machines of the same type or in the same area are associated with it. I can also go and look at a particular alert and see what kind of machines are associated with this particular alert. For example, in this case, you have 2 machines are affected at the same time. And this allows you to see what kind of things are happening. What you see here is that different sections in here represent different alert system. This is a dragon. This is from the firewall. And you can see which one, each one has its own set of different types of alerts, or as you can see here, it's a whole group of alerts. And I don't have animation of it right now, but if you click on it, then it opens and closes this particular area because it's combined them together so you can see it as a global view, or you can look at details on it. And when we talk about level of details, you can actually go to each one of those, and when you select either the machine or a particular alert, it gives you information about the alerts, specific alerts that are associated with it. There are various other things that you can do with it, but this is a way where you take the alerts from many different machines, different logs, you aggregate together into different groups of alerts, and then you aggregate it based on time. And what the actual alerts that you're seeing here is what happened in the innermost string. And you can change, here you can see that each one is 5 minutes, but you can change it and decide that you want to see it, that it will be instead of 5 minutes, it can be the last 5 minutes, the last, after that an hour or a day, or each ring represents a different amount of time. And you can specify what is your baseline. Are you looking at information coming right now? Or do you want to go back and look what happened an hour ago, and then these are all the pieces that shows you before. So this is a way to aggregate it. One of the things we've done is, let's see if I have a good picture of it. That was another version that came later on that actually has 2 sets of ring, and actually the system learns the visualization part doesn't know in advance anything about the alert types, but it aggregates them as they are coming in. You tell them which field to look at, and it automatically aggregates the data based on the data that it gets. And if there are new values in here, then it will just introduce those, introduce new sections in here for this particular type of alert, which the system didn't know in advance. I guess that's my initial description. If anybody has any questions, I can explain more about what we are doing.
So anyway, so in this space, basically, you tend to have this connection between like more of a graph visualization to see connectivity of things versus geographic visualization in terms of showing the location, and then the parsing of the data to raise alert and so highlight areas of interest. Going directly to some of the questions. So managing lots of logs. So that's a little bit high level, depends really on what you need to do. So 50 megabytes per day or over that is not necessarily a huge amount of data, but it requires mostly to understand what you need to do in advance. So typically logs are not well organized. And so there is a question of how you structure them potentially in a database or what you can detect in purely streaming mode. And those are kind of the two aspects that people need to consider. And so for example, if you look at what Yarden is sharing, like depending on the type of alerts or the type of the attacks, typically you have a set of patterns that you need to highlight, and then you can go through those logs in streaming mode and quickly minimize the delay between an event happening and basically highlight that in the visualization. In the process of that, probably then you want to create indices and put them on a database, and that becomes a little bit more of a post-mortem visualization when you want to allow, once you detect the pattern that it seems of interest or concern, in this case, so then you can dig in and get more of the details. And so that's really the difficulty. So turning kind of a raw log into a good structured data set, kind of a table with all the information and how you go through and access the information and then highlight it depending on the user interface of the different systems. So I don't know if there is any follow-up on that. Second question, assuming no or very little budget, what visualizations are the biggest wins? Oh, okay. So the various elements for visualizing the results. So let me see. The visualization aspect, yes, is related to the type of information. So if you are like a SOC, and I assume this is kind of the security operation center approach. So so you're looking at kind of overall big picture of information. So that's in the space of what Yarden was visualizing. And in particular, you have this kind of gathering the different dimensions concurrently. So the big win that visualization can give you is intuitive correlation between different aspects, right? So if you go through the data in log line by line, you will never have the big picture, right? And so building a user interface similar to what Yarden was highlighting suddenly creates connection between the different parts. So actually this one that is showing now, it's a very good example. You have the geographic information in the middle and then the different type of elements that can emerge. And so you get kind of the big picture. And so this is kind of one of the most it's typically what triggers interest or concern about a particular event. And then once you highlight one, it would be important then to still be connected to the raw data. And I would kind of introduce the GL linked view concept in addition to a visualization like this. You want to maybe click. Your speaker is not working. Can you hear me, guys?
Valerio, you might want to stop sharing your video because you're breaking a little bit. Now we cannot hear you. Yarden, do you have anything else in your like slides to present?
I hope you can hear me.
Like, yes, we can hear you. Like until Valerio joins back,
Sure.
maybe you want to take over.
In here, you can see that what we talked before is when you think about it from visualization point of view, you think about it in abstract terms, and it doesn't need to be something that's associated necessarily with security, and then it applies in other domain as well. Here you can think about an example where you look at incidents from the reports from police, suspicious activity, traffic accidents. You have information from hospital and emergency units. From the medical side, here you have from the fire department. Here's another medical example. For example, a story that I gave this one to somebody who hasn't seen it at all, and I just gave it to him to take a look, and he immediately came back and says, oh, it's interesting because when you look, for example, on this particular case, and you can see that it was an accident with pedestrian, and you can also see that the fire department was dispatched with grass fire and auto fire during that time to the same place. Not unexpectedly, you can see that medical emergency associated with it are burned. You can see that ambulances and fire trucks were dispatched to the area. This is one of the cue that we use. So you see the lines don't actually get there. So it tells you dispatch, but it hasn't reached to that point. And you can also have connections of which hospital, like Highland University Hospital will be, that's where the people are evacuated to. So you can look at it and you can see stories within it because you focus on a particular area, and you can see information that meant that you can bring it up. And this is kind of associated with the last questions. Sorry, with the third one, where's the responsibility? It's important to distinguish between data collections, who is collecting the data or generating the logs, again, whether they are from different departments or from different alert system or anything like that. Each one is independent, but if you have unique characteristics or shared characteristics that you combine with the system itself, or if you think about it in this way, you can then bring them up together in the same place, because and none of this system needs to know anything about the other one, but together, when they start to come back together, you can start noticing that they are events that are correlated together and give you something interesting. For example, this is from a demo data set that we had, because I can't use the real data sets. What you see here is you can see there's a lot of alerts that are coming in, and over time, when it becomes red, it tells you that there are a lot of alerts. But actually, if you're looking at over time, you can see that this is a ping sweep, which is a simple thing. And you see that at first it's all the machines over here, and over time you see this line kind of progressing because somebody is just doing a ping swing. That's my small issue. It's a kiddie thing, not an important one, but once you look at it, you can dynamically, you can see things behaving along it, and you can see different things are moving at the same time. So regarding who's responsible, is it the user as a presentation? layer, it has to be the user. The presentation layer can only present data that exists. It doesn't know what your question is, and your question can change over time. When you start with this, you might notice that it's traffic accident, and when you see that there's fire and there's burn, you might have other questions like, are the units dispatched to it? Well, which hospital is associated with this, or if it's a mass event, which hospital will take care of this? So your questions change over time. And the system doesn't know what your question is and what you care about. What it can do is it can present you information, and based on the information, you can change what your query is. You may close or open or close some of those groups and say, I want to see more detail. I don't want to see the details. I want to understand more what's going on. So I may click on this and I can say, I want to see more information. Again, this is low level, high level information, but then you can say, once I've seen this, I want to see it on a different screen. I want to collect that information. I want to see real detail of this. So this is kind of the direction where you start your search for information. So the visualization is just a key. It's something to alert you that there is something there, or, well, it doesn't alert you. It shows you what is there, and hopefully it will give you enough key information to see and understand, change your direction or what is it that you're looking for. The thing is, what you have is you have a huge amount of information, and what we have to do is remove a lot of the information, clean it, and just present you a little bit. And this is what we call information sent. Leave enough information sent in there that you will say, oh, there is something in here. There's some scent of the data that is missing. Show me more of that data so we can do a level of details and drill down and get more information about that.
Yeah, if I can make an analogy, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's so this is a very interesting question, but think about in astronomy, right? Is that the astronomer or the telescope that are responsible for the data discovery? And so clearly it's actually a combined effort. The user is in the driver's seat to decide what to do, and in a way has to be the important aspect, because a discovery happens effectively only once it gets in the brain of the user in some way, right? But the visualization tool, it's critical into, in a way, empowering the ability, especially through the visual system that is the kind of more advanced in terms of human capacity, into facilitating the discovery. So especially, I mean, the word discovery is very important. It means you find things that not necessarily you even know they're there, or you don't know exactly what is the pattern that needs to be highlighted, right? As soon as you know exactly what you're looking for, you can always just write an algorithm and tell me, oh, I found X in this location, and that's it, right? So generally you want to think about the visualization system in something that highlight classes of patterns, not specific ones. And that's kind of why, in a way, it's very hard, but also it's very good in a fast evolving environment, because once I write an algorithm where I discover a very specific pattern, as soon as the pattern changes, that algorithm may not work anymore. So you really want to think about this as the complement or preamble to converging to a well-defined set of parameters that could be just completely automated. And the visualization combined with the user is when that automation is not quite possible yet. Or so, yeah, one can kind of figure out what's going on. And so it's kind of both. But think about the tool as what makes the user kind of become more powerful, more able to look at new things or think of things quickly. And by the way, there is an issue of cognitive load. If things are too slow, humans are not really good at developing ideas. So the power of this type of patterns, and I don't know if Yardani had more examples. The the power of showing them really quickly suddenly create a different level of engagement in the user, so that they can kind of notice something interesting, notice something new that otherwise would not be visible. The reality is always a question of how easily visible that is. You can always go through the logs and find something. The question is, does it take a fraction of a second? Does it take days? And that's really the power of the presentation layer or the visualization aspect.
I sometimes say that if you know that the answer is 42, then you don't need visualization for that.
Yes. Yeah, we often like to say that sometimes the goal of the visualization system is to become not useful anymore, right? There is a period of time where you know exactly what you're looking for, and you really desperately need a visualization environment to explore the space. And then as soon as you know exactly the pattern you're looking for, you can kind of encode it precisely. But I think security is one of those areas where there is always this game of outdoing each other. As soon as you find the pattern, the people doing the intrusion or the problems will change and adapt. And so that's kind of where a solid visualization environment, it's a good investment. And so that's where I may have a little bit of a problem with the previous question, thinking about having no budget. Obviously we're all strapped in terms of budgets, that's understandable, but people should think carefully of the priorities, and a solid visualization environment like this one, especially once you reproduce, maybe specialized for your case, something that has a proven track record like this circle metaphors that Yarden in several research papers kind of published and show, and it's being adopted by other techniques. For example, things like that tend to be very intuitive, and they might require some initial investment in creating, but they show a lot of value long term.
Another point to see this, you have to do in computer science, we always talk about separation of concerns. So in here, for example, this Dragon is one system. You have here something from Snort, something from the firewall, but you can also take and create on the fly new kinds of aggregation of data. For example, if we take all the alerts that we get right now from all the logs and look at their signatures and then sort them and pick up the 10 most active signatures, we can create a new log, which is a virtual log. We call it, in this case, we called it the talk a lot. Which machine are talking a lot, are generating a lot of alerts, machine outside, the ones that are trying to attack us. So you have another way of looking, aggregating the data on the fly, and you can see information about it, but from the visualization part of it, it's just another log that comes in. The fact that this log is some processing of your other logs, the visualization doesn't care about it. It's just another information that you can put in, which means if you think about it in this abstract way, you can add more and more types of alerts, more logs, more logs that are analysis of other tools. And as you have it, new advances in analysis, you can just put them in as new stuff, and the visualization says, fine, I'll show you. It's up to the user then to try and figure out. It's just supposed to help the user. It doesn't answer the question.
This is Jasmine from Oregon State. I really like the visualizations that you've shown. And I'm wondering if there's any, are there existing software tools that can be used as a basis to get started with this? Or was this mostly developed from scratch? I understand there's a lot of things that would have to go into it on the back end, but I'm wondering if there's a starting point.
Well, this was developed some time ago, and it was developed for the NSA. So once we develop it, they took it, and that's it. It disappears into the void. You have no idea where and what they're doing with it. So there is this tool by itself doesn't exist right now that you can use, and you will have to start it again. There are many types of visualization people have done with kind of circular things, but nobody actually uses this combination. Even though we were from the beginning, this kind of visualization of things that are going from the middle to the end. Not anything that I'm aware. I think I can show you, by the way, an example of what a student made out of this. Oh, actually, I'm not sure. I don't know where it is.
Yes, some of the trouble that a lot of those tools really require a certain level of customization. And
no, I don't.
depending on the, so what type of tasks are you thinking of?
Well, in our specific case, it's alerts to do with oceanographic sensors on a vessel. So we already have the alerts that exist. They're just not visualized in this way. And sorry, just.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So because if, yeah, and I don't know, are you using, so for example, there are things like Google Maps and things like that. They have a relatively easy API to integrate like a graph. Or so if you take this type of metaphor that we're showing, you can represent, and then you have your own system to kind of do the data processing. So again, there are not generic tools that do it in all cases, and clearly yours is somewhat specific, but then you can, there are now tools like Google Maps or S3 Maps that have a very easy API to add a graph on top, or typically they have like bubbles of different sizes to do the magnitude of the alert and so on. And they have the geographic dimension that probably it would be needed in your case.
And this is just somebody that I'm one of my students that worked on it later on, where they show you additional things that you can do with this kind of visualization. So here you have, instead of logs, you have people, you have projects, and you have skills. But what you can do is if you take Alice and you move her inside, suddenly you see this relationship between her and all the projects she works in, and what kind of what things she knows how to do. And you can look at Bob and you can see what Bob is doing, or if Bob is not doing very well and you fire Bob, and now Bob is not part of your environment. So the thing is that you can play with it, you can try and investigate specific things. You see only Alice is working on UI update. And if you want to see who is the business analyst, well, Jeff, and he's working on this particular project. The idea is that you can do more than just work with this kind of environment to select what things you want to see, which is kind of more not as interactive, although it is interactive, but not in the fact that you can select what things you want to look at and you bring it into your focus of attention and so forth.
Maybe, Yarden, I think it's in the Epinon, you have the geographic maps and some of the statistics. That might be more relevant as an example.
It's not, Epinon has nothing to do with logs though, but.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, but I think it's correlation between geographic data.
Oh, so in our particular case, it's not a geographic thing. It has to do with how the sensors are behaving within the vessel. So, you know, are they transmitting data? Is it good data?
Okay, so it's more.
So it fits into this kind of things where you have your sensors, and then you can have additional information associated with them, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
So
and then the question is, do you put anything in the middle? Do you have any fixed interest, like your machines, and that might be of interest, and you can use a map, different maps in here? Or is it something more like, in this case, where you just bring in whatever information you want to see and see if it's, what else is connected to it or associated with it? What?
So maybe the type of figure that could be useful. So it's like yeah, one challenge though is that the software layer, the languages used for this type of visualization has been evolving really fast.
Yeah.
And so, well, before maybe Java was dominating, now maybe some of the D3 and some of the JavaScript libraries, or more recently, some of the things in Jupyter notebooks would be more relevant and easy to develop, right? So I don't know if you're familiar with D3. It's kind of a JavaScript library, so it can be done web-based, and it has a huge set of examples. And so you might easily find some. Definitely they have various metaphors like this. And I don't know, Yarden, if you want to talk about your recent more experience with the Jupyter Labs, because that would also, that's an environment that makes it very easy to mix analysis with a visualization environment. So if people are not familiar, Jupyter Notebooks is kind of one of the recent evolutions that has been really taking off from the data science space. And there you can nicely mix visualization with your scripting environment. While in this older system, it was hard. You end up having to have a predefined set of GUIs and buttons. In Jupyter, you have the full power of Python, and so you just write your variables and so on, but you can still visualize it. It's kind of similar to the old user interface of Mathematica and maybe MATLAB, but it is way flexible. And with this extension in Jupyter Labs, you really can build a full-blown user interface with sliders and so on. And on the side, you continue to do your programming and writing your analytics in Python. So that also maybe it's a type of investment that we would recommend because it becomes super flexible and now has so much adoption that the fear of that going away, it's not nearly as high as for other tools in the past. And I don't know what language people use for doing the data analytics. That would be an interesting thing to know about. Does anybody use Python?
I'm using Python.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, that I think maybe the easiest transition. Do you use the notebooks or just raw Python?
Just raw right now.
Okay, so I would strongly recommend, and I don't know if Yarden, you agree or disagree, to start looking into the Jupyter notebooks. It's just normal Python, except that you execute things cell by cell, and then you can interleave with pieces of visualizations, and then you can easily go back and re-evaluate the cell, do your analysis while you build the visualization itself. Right. So you don't have the typical separation of build the program first and then use it. It's empowered the concept of scripting even more, where you enter the building on the tool while you use it happens all at the same time.
And Jupyter by itself has been for decades, not decades, but for many years. But Jupyter was more of one session, one notebook at a time that you're working. And in recent years, we started to work with Jupyter Lab, which is the next incarnation of it. And this is an environment that runs in the browser, both of them, where you can see multiple windows at the same time within that environment. And you can have multiple notebooks that you can work in on different things or shared between them. We've done things where we allow you to add additional, there are other tools that allow you to do visualization. So if you get some data and you want to see a chart, then there are libraries that you just fire a few commands and you've got charts that are going in interactive. We've done something which allow you to do much more advanced things in it, but even without those, that's an environment that you can easily do a small script or run script that you wrote before, and you can see the result and you can go back and forth. And it's not like the tool that I've shown you that is it has specific things that it can do, and you can't do beyond this particular interaction that we provided. Now you have much more capability to bring other things into play. So especially if you use Python, that's a great environment, although Jupyter and Jupyter Lab support many other environments as well. If you want to use it with R, or even if you want to use C or C++, you can do it within Jupyter.
Do you have a ready example maybe of a
No, I don't
notebook?
think I have it on this machine right now.
Let me see.
I don't remember if I have it.
Just on the spot, but it would be interesting to give an example. I'm looking whether I have something myself. It would be maybe unrelated, but maybe, I don't know if you guys are interested in taking a look at how that type of environment would work.
Keep on, I need to.
So PC, okay, maybe I have a notebook, totally unrelated topic. This is like scraping some web page and run. Oh no, this is actually not a notebook. I think it was in the. Okay, I'll try. This is dangerous because I was not ready to do this. One second, I'll run it behind the scene. So
I need to stop sharing my.
yeah, give me a second. I don't want to totally embarrass myself. Oh, actually, I'm afraid that, let me see. I need to see whether the data is available or not. Okay, this.
Something is not set up right on this machine.
Also, since we have about 15 minutes left on the office hours, if people have questions, maybe it's the right time to ask them.
Yeah, I guess we were supposed to.
Yeah, and if
Leave
anybody.
a few minutes early, but yeah, there are any other questions in the meantime I'm looking at.
If anybody wants to have a discussion, also feel free to unmute yourself and you can ask your question or jump into the topic.
So actually, yeah, maybe I'll just show a slide in the meantime, and then people can have time to ask questions. But this is the idea. Slideshow. Current slide. So basically, yeah, a notebook works more or less like this. I hope I'm showing the right screen. So on one side, you have this idea of the notebook, and you have those cells, and this is just plain Python code. But as soon as you evaluate a cell with a visualization, that will appear as part of your notebook. So in this case, for example, as part of the cell here, in my slide, I decomposed the two pieces, but that was appearing basically in this part, in the middle of that. And there you have a whole visualization environment where the data is streaming, visualizing, and we compute on the fly a given plot. And so, and again, instead of separating the visualization tool versus the analysis programming environment, it's all embedded together. And then if you analyze different data, you go back, reevaluate the cell, and then that visualize again, and so on. So you have a nice cycle where, so normally from a traditional language to a scripting language, the usability goes up basically orders of magnitude. And again, this environment goes from scripting to interactive, if you will. And again, usability also grows a lot. So for people, especially that are already familiar with Python, and there are various other versions. So Jupyter actually, I think it works more in general. But I strongly recommend to build, so go in this space, and so you don't have to become an expert in GUI programming or things like that. You can just build your plots, and those can be updated on the fly. Oops. Any other question? Yeah, I saw a question, and certainly we can make slides available. I'll leave it up to George to tell us how we coordinate with that. Maybe Wendy will distribute things to people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, slides will become available after, I think after the workshop. We will have like a Google Drive with all the presentation slides in there.
Yeah, and so we'll definitely make some of the Yarden slides available. There is another visualization talk in the afternoon that this time we focus more on the security, given that those were the questions. In the afternoon, we'll talk more of visualizing geographic scientific data for also data exploration and so on. And kind of the two topics will be fairly complementary. So I don't know, I think we're 10 minutes from the hour. If I remember correctly, if there are no more questions, we could get ready to sign off. I don't know, George, if that's the...
Yeah, that will be...
people, I don't know what is the protocol. But
yeah, that will be okay if there are no more questions and you finish with your presentation and the topics that you wanted to cover.
Okay, well, thanks everybody.